you're sitting here locally, you have a question or comment, you can just speak out.
How can you tell if it's God speaking to you?
Okay, the question was, how can you tell if God is speaking to you? I've been asked that question several times, and every time it's really the same answer. The closer you get to God, now you're gonna have to learn to filter out what belongs to God and what doesn't. First of all, God will never speak anything contrary to His word, never. So part of that is knowing God's word. He will never ever speak anything contrary to His word. Okay, so that's one way you know. And so then you can have, of course, we have the devil there to try to sabotage our thoughts, to try maybe to get us to do something that goes against God's will. And so how can you tell the difference? The closer you get to God, now that's my experience, the closer you get to God, the better you can hear from Him. His word says, my sheep hear my voice, and a stranger they will not follow. So the closer you get to God, the better you're able to discern what's Him and what's not God. You see that? And so that's why it's so important that we have a relationship with God. That's where that relationship comes in at, is because God talks all the time. Sometimes we're just too busy to listen. You know, for instance, my wife may say something to me. She may be talking to me. Well, if I'm doing something else, I might not be listening for her. Now, with me, that's the way I am. If I'm going to speak back to you some kind of way, I need to be paying attention. That's just me, the way I am. I have to be paying attention to you. It's almost like I have to anticipate you talking to me for me to respond to you, because other than that, your voice is just going to blend in with everything else that's in the room. Whether it's the TV or whether it's other people talking in another room or something like that. And so the idea in saying that is this: you have to make room for God so that you can know for sure that He's talking to you, and that you're understanding that it's Him that's talking. So say, for instance, if I anticipate my wife saying something to me, I'm going to tune everything else out. And listen, if I've asked my wife a question and I'm waiting on a response, everything else needs to be tuned out. What's the use of me asking my wife a question and waiting on a response, but I got the TV going, you know, the music's going over here, I'm listening to other conversations? And so one way we can know that God is talking to us, first of all, is by tuning everything else out. Many people want to hear from God, but they just expect Him to talk over televisions and radios and everything else that we have going on at any given time. And we have to be willing to turn those things off so that we can hear from Him, you see. And so that's the way we know that we're hearing from God, that we're able to tell the difference as well. You know, having a relationship with Him. When my wife can be in a room with 20 other women. If she called my name or if she says something, I know her voice because of the relationship that I have with her. Now, before she and I had a relationship and before I knew her, she sounded just like anybody else to me. You see? But through our relationship, I've learned her voice. I've learned the way that she is as well. Now, it might be somebody else that has a voice that sounds exactly like hers. But you know what? Through my relationship with her, I'm able to tell what's not her and what is. Example, my wife don't like chitterlings. So if I hear a voice that sounds exactly like hers, saying, I want you to cook me some chitlins, I'm going to know. Now, I know that's not Antoinette Renee Bolden talking. Because I know my wife, and I know that she don't like chitlins. And so that's another way. The devil has a way of mimicking God. And he can sound just as sweet and pleasant. And you could think of that. You know, last time God talked to me, that's the way it sounded. So that's got to be God. And so how do you differentiate then? Is by knowing God's word. God's not going to go against his own word. You see, it's about knowing him. And you know him through his word. Amen.